This is Story Recapped. Today, I'm going to explain an action, adventure, sci-fi film called Outlander. Spoilers ahead, watch out, and take care. In the year 709 AD, a spaceship crashes in a lake in Norway near the Viking kingdom of Herot. Not long, two figures in spacesuits emerge from the ship, but one of them appears to be injured. After retracting his helmet, Kainan falls asleep and dreams about the tragedy that occurred to his family on his home planet. When he wakes up, he finds out that his companion has died from severe injuries. Kainan sees the ship's beacon floating on the lake, so he swims after it and uses it to determine his location. Afterward, Kainan uses the machine to download information about Earth and its inhabitants. After burying his crewmate, Kainan goes into the woods, armed with a powerful blaster. He soon comes across a village, but there are no traces of the inhabitants. As he investigates, he discovers signs of a monstrous creature that attacked the village. A man on horseback suddenly arrives, so Kainan tries to go after him in the woods. However, the man runs over him with the horse to knock him down. Kainan loses his weapon and falls unconscious. The man takes him prisoner and brings him to Herot. In the village, Freya practices sword fighting with her father, King Hrothgar. As they cross swords, Hrothgar tries to convince Freya to marry Wulfric, believing that she will turn him into a good king. But Freya refuses because she thinks Wulfric will become a tyrant like his father. Soon after they end the training session, Wulfric arrives and quips that he won't marry Freya if she fights like a man, because he doesn't want her to rule over him. When Freya leaves, Wulfric informs Hrothgar that the neighboring village has been destroyed while their ruler, Gunnar, is out trading with the Russ. He thinks that people were killed because there was a lot of blood, and he didn't find any bodies. He warns Hrothgar that Gunnar would blame them for the devastation. Later, Wulfric brings Kainan to a hut to interrogate him. When Wulfric asks where he's from, Kainan claims that he comes from an island in the north. Wulfric then inquires why he was in the village, so Kainan explains that he is hunting a dragon. Wulfric refuses to believe him and starts beating him up. Kainan manages to break free and fight the men holding him down, but Wulfric soon subdues him and holds a knife to his throat. Wulfric, however, decides that it's not his time to die, so he knocks him out instead. Wulfric asks Freya to look after Kainan. Freya is reluctant, but she later goes into the hut to treat his bruises while Kainan attempts to escape. Kainan pretends to be unconscious when Freya enters the hut. Meanwhile, Wulfric informs Hrothgar that they've interrogated Kainan, but they didn't find anything useful. Hrothgar wants to send messengers to Gunnar to tell them that they're not responsible for attacking the village, but Wulfric points out that Gunnar would never believe him. Wulfric suggests killing Gunnar, but Hrothgar thinks that it's not wise. Hrothgar understands that Wulfric wants to avenge his father's death, but he stresses that the sword will not make Wulfric a good king. Hrothgar warns him that he will never inherit the throne until he learns how to rule his own head and heart. Back in the hut, Freya asks Kainan if he attacked Gunnar's village, which he denies. When Freya discovers that Kainan broke loose from the ropes holding his binds, he knocks her out. Bjorn, the guard, soon enters the hut to attack Kainan, but he manages to beat him unconscious. As Kainan attempts to leave the village, he hears a guard screaming in agony after being attacked by an unseen creature. Another guard soon alerts the village of the attack, so the Viking warriors immediately arm themselves and head for the walls to fight against anyone trying to break in. However, they learn that the attack is taking place inside the village when they hear women screaming. Soon, a villager sees the creature attacking them, but the monster kills him before he can tell the others. Kainan sees the light emitted by the creature, so he goes after it. Bjorn follows Kainan thinking that he's responsible for the attack. During the chase, the creature kills Bjorn and flees from the village while dragging a corpse on its tail. Kainan tries chasing it, but the Vikings capture him. When Hrothgar and Wulfric inspect Bjorn's corpse, they're aghast upon seeing large claw marks on his chest. The following day, the Viking warriors argue about who's responsible for the previous night's attacks. Boromir contends that the Frankish raiders carried out the assault, but Wulfric thinks that it was a bear because Bjorn was clawed to death. When Hrothgar asks Kainan about the dragon that he's chasing, he reveals that the creature is called a Moorwen. He reveals that the Moorwen lures its prey by appearing as a speck of light in the darkness. Kainan confesses that he's responsible for bringing the Moorwen to Herot because it got into his ship and killed his crew before he crashed. Hrothgar and his men decide to hunt for the Moorwen and take Kainan along, but they have to bind his hands. Before they leave, Freya punches Kainan in the face as a reprisal for knocking her out. As they look for the Moorwen in the woods, Hrothgar asks Kainan what brought him to Herot. Kainan reveals that he was on his way to bury corpses of people killed by the Moorwen. Wulfric finds corpses of animals on the way, so he suggests splitting up to find the predator's main trail. Hrothgar tells Wulfric to take Kainan with him while he goes with Boromir. Soon, they hear one of the men screaming, so they follow the voice to a cave. Before entering, Kainan arms himself with a sword from the slain man. A huge bear suddenly emerges from the cave, so Hrothgar stabs it with a spear. The bear knocks Hrothgar to the wall and attempts to attack him, but Kainan impales it with a sword. Then, the other men take turns killing the bear. Later, Hrothgar releases Kainan and gives him a sword to express his gratitude for saving him from the bear. The village celebrates their kill that night, and welcomes Kainan as their guest instead of a prisoner. While Boromir tells the woman how they killed the bear, Freya overhears the story, and learns that Kainan saved her father from certain death. As Kainan and Hrothgar enjoy their meal, they find a young boy under their table. Kainan offers the boy food, but Hrothgar realizes that he wants to see the sword that killed the bear. Kainan promises to lend it to the boy in exchange for his name, so the boy introduces himself as Eric. Hrothgar reveals that raiders killed Eric's parents a year ago, but he assures Kainan that the boy will be fine because the village is taking good care of him. The Vikings start suddenly chanting shields and position themselves in a rectangular formation while holding shields over their shoulders. Not long after, Wulfric stands on top of a shield and dares Kainan to follow him. Wulfric then runs on top of the shields, so Kainan does his best to do the same. After a while, Wulfric does a somersault and lands perfectly on a shield several feet away from his origin. Kainan manages to do the same, but he falls to the ground when the shield breaks in half. Later, Freya approaches Kainan to thank him for saving her father. Kainan tells her that the bear didn't kill the villagers the previous night, and warns her that the Moorwen will return to attack the village. Suddenly, warriors from Gunnar's village launch a sneak attack on Herot. Gunnar engages Hrothgar in a fight as soon as he finds him. Gunnar disarms him and breaks his shields, but Kainan comes to Hrothgar's rescue. Before Gunnar could fight back against Kainan, his men drag him out of the village to retreat into the woods because they can't defeat Herot's warriors. Outside the gates, Gunnar castigates Hrothgar for killing his wife and son, noting that he didn't even leave their bodies behind. While treating Kainan's injuries, Freya reveals that their war with Gunnar began when his tribe failed to show up for a raid against the Franks. The Franks ambushed their warriors and killed King Helga, Wulfric's father. The Moorwen starts killing Gunnar's men in the forest, so they run back to Herot to ask for help. However, Wulfric thinks it's a trick, so he instructs his archers to fire at them. They kill a few of them, but they soon stop firing when they see the Moorwen mutilating one of Gunnar's men. The leaders from both villages soon discuss what to do about the Moorwen. Wulfric suggests hunting it down, but Kainan notes that the only way to kill it is to trap it, because it's too strong out in the open. The next day, Kainan instructs the villagers to dig a deep pit and gather wood and whale oil. When the hole is deep enough, the workers erect a few posts and put shields on top of them. Afterwards, they pour barrels of whale oil into the pit. During a meal with Freya, Kainan reveals that Hrothgar asked him to stay in Herot and live as a Viking. However, Kainan doesn't think it's a good idea, because they don't know much about him. He reveals that his people took over a land that belonged to the Moorwens. They killed millions of them with fire, because they believed that they were nothing but animals. As payment for Kainan's efforts, the leaders gave him land for his family. He left their new home for another mission, and learned weeks later that a Moorwen that survived their raid killed his family and everyone else in the compound. Freya tells Kainan that it's the will of the gods, but Kainan argues that his family died because he failed to take care of them. Freya gives him a sword that was handed down to her by Hrothgar. She tells him that his end will be up to him, if he truly believes he writes his own destiny. Kainan and Wulfric soon leave the safety of the village's walls to lure the Moorwen into their trap. After waiting a while, Kainan throws a torch beyond the bridge and discovers the Moorwen lurking in the dark. As the Moorwen slowly walks towards them, the priest suddenly approaches and implores the creature to leave, believing that it's Lucifer. After the Moorwen absolutely owns the priest, Kainan and Wulfric throw their spears at it and run towards the trap. Kainan manages to exit the trap safely by stepping on the shields, but Wulfric falls to the pit when the Moorwen knocks him off the platform. As soon as Kainan grabs him, the warriors shoot flaming arrows into the pit to ignite the whale oil. When the Vikings watch the trap burn, Eric notices a smaller Moorwen inside the feasting hall. The women and children run out of the building while Freya bravely faces the Moorwen's offspring. As the warriors scramble to get to the feasting hall, the larger Moorwen emerges from the pit and attacks the villagers despite being in flames. Hrothgar helps Freya deal with the offspring, but the creature is fast and strong. Kainan attempts to fight with the parent, but the creature escapes after cutting off Gunnar's head. When Eric tells him that there's another Moorwen, Kainan rushes to the feasting hall only to find out that the offspring has already killed Hrothgar and escaped. In the morning, the villagers leave Herot to find a safer place. Kainan realizes that they need weapons made out of stronger material to kill the Moorwen, so he goes to his ship's crash site with Freya and Wulfric to salvage the metal from his underwater spacecraft. When Kainan retrieves a few metal scraps below the lake, he senses the offspring swimming behind him. As he waits for it to reappear, he finds Freya's dress and realizes that the creature is on the surface. When Kainan emerges from the water, he finds out that the offspring has attacked Wulfric and took Freya. Kainan and Wulfric soon return to the village and ask Boromir to forge the metal into swords. Boromir says that one does not simply make swords to kill the Moorwen, but after he does finish making the swords, Kainan, Wulfric, and a group of warriors descend onto the well to find the Moorwen's lair. When Freya wakes up, she screams in terror after finding herself in the Moorwen's lair with the corpses of the creature's victims. As she struggles to get up, she sees the offspring gnawing on one of the dead bodies. The young Moorwen soon comes after her, but it suddenly covers Freya with corpses and runs away after sensing that other people are inside the caves. The offspring soon attacks Kainan and the group, forcing them to separate. To avoid detection, Kainan and Wulfric put out their torch and walk silently in the caves to find the Moorwen. They soon find the young Moorwen feeding on a member of their group. When it attacks another warrior nearby, Kainan goes after it and slashes at its eyes. The young Moorwen grabs hold of Boromir and injures him before running away. Kainan screams in despair when Boromir dies from his wounds. Freya hears his voice and calls out to him, but she comes across the blind Moorwen before Kainan can reach her. She walks away quietly to avoid it, but the young Moorwen hears her when she steps on a bone. Freya manages to steer clear of the creature when it attacks. Not long after, Wulfric arrives with Kainan and stabs the young Moorwen through a small hole in the wall. Freya attempts to squeeze through the hole to escape, but she couldn't fit, so Kainan throws a sword at her. She slashes the young Moorwen just in time as it jumps towards her. The creature's mother soon wakes up from its slumber and starts looking for them, so they head out of the cave. The three find themselves on a high rock ledge between two waterfalls, so their only option is to climb the cliffs. Wulfric fights against the Moorwen while Freya attempts to escape. When the Moorwen snags him, he stabs it in the head twice with his spear. The Moorwen then throws Wulfric towards Kainan and retreats back into the cave. When Kainan goes after it, the creature attacks him with its tail while staying hidden in the dark. Meanwhile, Freya decides to go back into the cave to help Kainan. The Moorwen soon emerges and attacks Kainan, causing him to drop his sword. When he picks it up, he sees the creature's reflection on the blade. Before he could turn around to slash the creature, Freya repeatedly stabs it. The Moorwen slips from the rock edge when Kainan hits it with the sword, but the creature avoids falling to the water by grabbing onto Kainan. While Freya holds onto Kainan by his feet, he slices the Moorwen's hand with his sword and watches it fall until it plunges into the water. Soon, they run over to Wulfric, who's suffering from significant injuries. After learning that the Moorwen is dead, Wulfric entrusts Kainan with the king's crest to indicate that he wants Kainan to take over Herot as ruler. Wulfric expresses his hope that Kainan would wear the medallion longer than he did before passing away. Kainan and Freya soon call out to Eric to inform him that it's now safe to return to Herot. Kainan gives the crest to Freya and goes back to the crash site to retrieve his wife's coffin from the lake. That night, another spacecraft flies above the Earth in search of Kainan, but he destroys the beacon so that he can stay in Herot. Unbeknownst to him, Freya's in the woods watching the spacecraft depart. In the morning, Kainan returns to the village to attend the burial ceremony for Wulfric and Hrothgar. Kainan takes back the medallion from Freya and becomes the village's new king. With his wife dead, Kainan is thirsty, so he decides to marry Freya, and the two adopt Eric as their son. Freya notes that she's the only one who knows that the gods sent Kainan. The gods soon return for him, but Kainan chose to stay and live with them.
Subscribe to watch more videos like this. Turn on notifications. And leave a like, it really helps the channel out. Thank you for watching.